wherever you are in the world. Welcome to my channel. My name is Jasmina from Jasmina Karmic Astrology. And this is Impromptu Live on YouTube today with an amazing karmic astrologer. I'm so excited to talk to Vika. I heard about her through my teacher, Iranian Med, as you probably know him already. They were doing the Leo Moon, the Moon series, and she was doing the Leo Moon. And I thought it was one of the best videos in that series. I'm so excited to have her here. So hi, Vika, how are you?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. And I'm so glad you loved that chat. It was a really enjoyable one.
You really showcased what Leo Moon is all about. And my husband has a Leo Moon, so I could really, relate to what you were saying. It was really helpful as well.
I'm so glad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I can help my spouse. I can understand him better
I know.
coming from you. Yeah,
I love
right?
that. And it's one of my favorite parts about astrology is being able to look at our partners and say, okay, I see you so much better right now. My husband's a Leo moon as well. So we're both these Leo moons just being a lot and just being able to see each other and say, okay, I recognize why this is happening. It's the magic.
Absolutely. No, yeah, that's just one of the perks of astrology. There are many more, of course.
Yeah.
So before we dive deeper into karmic astrology, please introduce yourself a little bit more. Where you're coming from? How did astrology found you, and why are you doing all of this?
Yeah. So my name is Vika Bradford. I am, as you said, a karmic astrologer, and I'm living here in British Columbia. I'm in the Okanagan Valley, just in the mountains and the magic, because this is just where I needed to be. Originally from Ontario, and just always knew I was like, I need to be in the mountains, by the lakes, like just here. So just living the dream over here. But astrology-wise, it's like the long version or the short version is always the question, right? But
whatever you like. I'm a Gemini. I can relate to longer versions as well. I like a good story.
Yeah, I'll make it as like succinct as possible. There's my Virgo coming out, right? It's like, let's just purify this. But I think the main reason or guidance post or whatever it was that took me here was, I started life, I started life a little harder than we would have wanted or expected. And I had depression from a very early age. I started developing extreme depression around the age of 11. There was a lot of abandonment stuff with family, a lot of family trauma. And beyond that, there was a lot of health stuff as well. So it was just this like compiled trauma, emotional repression stuff that happened that led me to kind of a deep, dark hole. I was suicidal by the time I was 16, but there was something in me that just hit this moment that was like, I can fix this. Like, it was like, it doesn't have to be this way. So luckily at 16, I was aware enough to ask for help. And I just, looked at my dad and I was like, I need help. So that unfolding started. And by the time I was around 20 years old, I started to wake up around the time Neptune moved into Pisces. Actually, I can like put it to the day now where I started buying self-help books. Like I remember going to the bookstore and this book like fell off the shelf for me. And I was like, okay. So I started this whole self-help rabbit hole that we all start in after many, many dark nights of the soul. And it kind of started with astrology was always there because my mom was very supportive of like, she'd buy me all the witchy books and all the astrology books. But when I was in my 20s and realizing like I could heal this naturally, after years and years of antidepressants and all that, I started to do all the spiritual things. So first it was Reiki and crystal healing. I did those. Then it was yoga. I did my yoga certification. I did all the things, and astrology came in and out. And it was actually when I was doing my yoga business, I was like, I'm going to be a yoga business person. I'm going to do retreats. I'm going to do the whole thing that I found astrology. My mentor dropped in at that time because she was doing branding with astrology. So I started doing my branding for my other business with astrology. And I was like, well, wait a minute. This is where I'm meant to be. So I started to study with her and I was like, this is just like a soul remembrance. My brain was like, I know exactly what I'm looking at right now. I can read this gibberish. Like it's just natural, right? And I feel like a lot of astrologers feel that way, where it's just like remembering. And from there, I remember I was just like, this is it. This is the work. And it's fascinating too, because I just actually did a podcast with someone on zodiacal releasing. I had no idea what this was. And so we were going through the podcast and she's talking about this. And we went right to the 2019 moment where I was like, astrology was the moment that like, this is what I'm doing. We locate it. She was like, what happened in 2019? I was like, astrology. So that's how I got to astrology. From getting in there, when I was reading and studying and looking at charts, I kept going to the same things. I kept going to Pluto. I kept going to the 8th house. I kept going to like the outer planets in this different way. And then I got very interested from one thing my mentor said about retrograde. She was like, retrogrades can really represent our past lives. And I was like, hold on. Astrology can tell us about our past lives. So
like, ding, ding, ding,
right?
ding.
Everything went off. And so at the time I started Googling things, but I didn't really know what to Google. So I'm just Googling astrology and past lives. I'm not finding much, a little bit about the moon, a little bit about the South Node. And I'm like, there's got to be more. So I just went on the deepest dive into every piece of information I could find on karma, on past lives, on astrology. And that is how it was just this like unraveling of arriving here. Like, here's a piece, here's a piece, here's a piece.
Yeah, it seems to me that it was meant to be. Like, this is something naturally that you lean into, which I love. This is exactly, what astrology is all about. There's so many different aspects of astrology and branches. And, the branch that really speaks to you, you kind of go to and dig deeper in it, and then you start practicing. So, you told me why karmic astrology, I understand, but what is it all about? So you said, is it just about past lives, or is there's more to it?
Okay, so it's a good question too, because I've actually had people recently be like, what is the difference between evolutionary astrology and karmic astrology? And though they dance together very well, they are different, right? And then the question of like, so what is karmic astrology? Like, what are we really studying? So I would say inadvertently, my one mentor is Judy Hall. If anyone hasn't read Judy Hall books, like just read them all. They're amazing. And now, she passed last year, sadly. So rest in peace. I'm just going to continue her work to my best ability. But this big difference, or not even the difference, the karmic astrology piece is like, we're looking at the soul blueprint as to these repeated signatures, these vows we take, these pitfalls we have, as well as the mastery, right? We have so much mastery we bring in from many lives. This can be our like good karma, quote unquote, our positive karma. I'm not really in love with the word good or bad or positive or negative, but it can be seen as, the positive karma that we carry in versus the hard stuff, the gritty stuff. Why do I keep repeating this cycle? Why do I keep drawing in the same partner? Why do I keep feeling this way, or I can't get out of this loop? And what I see a lot is like my past life regression work will mirror always the chart reading. And so we'll look at the chart and I'll say, all right, here are the signatures. And then it's always inside of the readings. And we're really kind of digging into the soul's comfort zones and how we get stuck in certain places, but then also I really see us up there in the ether choosing to come down. I see us choosing our birth chart and saying, I'm coming in now because this is what I'll experience. And then these will be my transits and this will be the evolution of my soul. And that's kind of that evolution process coming in. And it's like, why did you choose what you chose? Why did you want to learn these lessons? Why was some stuff supposed to be hard? Why was some stuff easy? Why was, the relationship with your mom difficult, but the relationship with your dad was easeful? These are kind of the things we're looking at. And the whole basis of it is, in my opinion, to liberate, right? To find freedom, to find ease, to make things more graceful so that we don't have to carry that baggage into the next life.
I like that. So I know a little. I'm not a karmic astrologer, but as a Gemini, with Gemini moon and Gemini everything, I think, information is very, kind of I'm kind of addicted to information, to be honest. So
I understand completely. Virgo, stellium, Gemini, Mars. I get it.
Yeah, and I'm Virgo rising. So
okay, so yeah, we are lost causes.
Yes, that's it. So I know that I heard about there's like a family karma and inherited karma and ancestor karma. So and you mentioned already those retrogrades. So what does it all mean? Like if people who have more retrogrades and people who have no retrogrades. So tell us more about that.
That's a great question. Yeah. And the ancestral stuff is so amazing too, because it's not just the stuff we're carrying in from previous incarnations. And, I always say, like, I won't know the full answers till I die and go into the ether. And then I'm like, oh, there it is. And then I'll come back and I'll forget. But I have this idea, and many past life regressionists, people who work with karma, people who work in karmic astrology, we kind of share similar theories around what we do in and out of families. Do we come into the same family line? Do we bop in and out of different family lines? How do those threads come through? And again, I have no idea the actual answer, but I do have a theory that we come in and out of certain family lines, or that we'll be in those shared family groups, maybe in this line, and then we're in this line, and then we're in this line. So we just kind of do that. And there's also the idea that we come in to the family that's going to create the right situation too, for what we want to learn.
Yeah, and there's often connection with your family members.
Yeah, the soul group, right?
Right.
Yeah.
I just want to mention my mom. She passed away, but she had opposite nodes, like she literally the same degree but opposite. So north and my south node were together, and vice versa. So there was definitely a connection there.
Yeah, and the nodes are always such like indicative of there being a big karmic connection between souls. And there'll be certain family members you won't feel that with, right? There'll be certain people where you're like, no, don't feel that, like we have this karmic thing going on, for better or worse. And then there's family members where you're like, yeah, I know, I've been with you several times. And the nodes really can show us a lot of that, the moon placements like that. So the ancestral piece is so fascinating to see, what has been passed down through our bloodline versus what has been passed down through our ingrained lives, and how they blend together. And what I've seen is they are always mirroring each other, right? Like whether you think you've incarnated into your family many times or zero. I have so many clients that are like, I've never been with this family, but the mirror of the energy is always there. So the family will mirror back that, oh, I'm working through Aquarius stuff, or I'm working through Leo stuff. So it could be like, we just choose the family that will present that wound, or that it could be healing a lot of the times too. So it's kind of interesting with ancestral. And then the retrogrades are fascinating too. It's funny, I've wanted to talk a lot about them more, and I just haven't found the time. And recently I'm like, I need to talk more about the retrogrades, because they're so linked into the karma that we didn't finish. Like it's very much unfinished business. There's a few places in the chart where I'm like, okay, unfinished business. The 12th house, for instance.
What does that mean, unfinished business? So what is the soul supposed to do then now, right? With all this unfinished business, right? I know a person with 7 retrogrades, right?
Yeah, it's a lot, right? Okay, so look, I get this question a lot too, when they're like, I have 100 retrogrades, what's happening? And I'm like, you're fine, you're fine. But you're just in a moment of unfinished business. So unfinished business, I see personally as like, it's like stuff you were working on in these previous incarnations. You were very consciously working on it, or unconscious. Could be, we can go back into your regression. You could be unaware that you were working on it. But this stuff that just didn't get sorted out. It's like, I didn't learn this lesson. I didn't make it through, say, a Mercury retrograde. I have a Mercury retrograde. And like, I didn't make it through those communication issues, right? I didn't make it through learning to speak my truth. I didn't make it through feeling safe to use my voice. And so I'm going to incarnate with a Mercury retrograde in, say, Virgo for me, because I am actually relearning what got missed or left behind in a previous incarnation. Now, it can also happen, it's like, not even that it's unfinished business, it's like something we kind of messed up. And I say that with so much love. It's like we abused our power, or, we abused our voice. And we can come in with a Mercury retrograde because we abused the power of our voice. And it's like, wow, we're going to have to relearn how to use it, right, in a more loving way. I think about mine a lot. I have these signatures on my chart of like, power abuses from previous lives. Now I've gone back into regressions and it's there. Who is it there? And I think about the fact that my Mercury retrograde is conjunct Venus. And so I'm like, okay, am I learning to soften what I say, or articulate things different, or, maybe be a little more gentle with my words? And in previous incarnations, was it that I wasn't so gentle? Was I maybe a little bit more harsh with the way I said things? Was I abusive with my voice? And my Gemini Mars can kind of confirm some of that too, right? That voice may have been a tool of power. And when I go into regression, there's a particular life where I was a Knight of Templar, and, I had a lot of power in that life, and I'm still kind of working through some of his anger.
Wow, that's interesting. That's fascinating. I think this fascinates me. I went through a couple of regressions myself, and as a South Node in Aries, as I mentioned to you before we started filming, in those lives I was alone. I was very much independent in all three that I went through. So it's very interesting. And then now, I'm thinking, I go so much into my South Node when I'm overwhelmed and I'm stressed. It's so natural to me just to tell everybody, off, and I'm just doing it myself, and which is not good, right? This is the whole point of it all, right? I mean, one of the things. This is fascinating. I think this is a topic we can talk so much about in forever, so many layers. I wanted to ask you something. I was also learning about eclipses, and that pre-eclipse to your birth that has some karmic signature.
Yeah.
What is that all about?
So when we look, like the eclipses. So I love to have a little peek at, if someone was born in an eclipse cycle, or what was the eclipse before them. I was recently that I was like, what eclipse was before my birthday? And it was a Leo eclipse, and I'm a Leo South Node. So it was pretty far before my birthday, but no matter how far out that eclipse was, it still speaks to a little bit of what you're working through now, especially if that eclipse happens to be on a placement inside of your chart, right? That eclipse happens 6 months before your birthday, but then you come in with, say it's a 10-degree Leo, and you come in with a 10-degree Leo placement, that's going to be very, very important. But even if you don't have that degree, it's really going to speak to, that eclipse being part of what might be more focused in your chart. So for me, that's my South Node, right? It could have been an Aquarius eclipse, but it also could have been in the other axes as well, activating other things. But when I think to my Leo South Node, which is conjunct my whole chart, it's crazy up there. It's that is always something I am having to work through, right? Because I have my moon, my midheaven, my Jupiter, my South Node, and then a whole bunch of asteroids there. It's crazy up in there. And having that eclipse pre my birthday, I'm always having to lean back into these many lives of, not even thinking, but being in the spotlight, being important, being special, but also what comes with all of that, like we talked about in the Leo moon chat, right? It's all these energies of Leo that can make us want to just shrink away because there's so many lives of being in the spotlight. So those eclipses pre your birthday can show you a little area that might be tender, that might be part of what you really are. Do I want to say releasing? I want to say healing. I want to say liberating. Because I don't like the term releasing technically for your South Node, even though we are releasing, even in medical astrology, you're releasing your South Node all the time. But it's more like healing, mastering, honoring, coming into that high octave of that energy rather than being in the really gritty parts of the sign. So I do find there's deep karma in, what that eclipse is pre your birthday. And if you anyone listening happens to be born during an eclipse portal, there's going to be extra stuff. So I would want to look at, what's the sign that activates? What house is that sign ruling in your chart? Was it a solar eclipse? Was it a lunar eclipse? Was it on the South Node? Was it on the North Node? Because it's going to say, right, are you in a letting go phase? Are you in an opening portal? And like, these are the million point factors we start to get into to help us understand pieces of our lives, right? Because that Leo energy for me is like, I really do need to let go of a lot of that. But because it's on my midheaven, I actually still need to use a lot of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I know my prenatal eclipse is an Aries, of course.
Okay.
So I have all this Aries energy, of course, anger management. You know, I can get angry so many, like for so. Anyway, anger is definitely an issue I'm working on, and just understanding that I need to release it. The eclipse was there, South Node. I need to release this anger. And go towards relationships and relating to others, which my husband often tells me, you're not alone in this marriage. Just as a reminder. Which I need to learn, which I'm thankful that I have him who understands and pushes me that right direction in some way. But it's interesting. I was also looking into I don't know if you know this eclipse families, Soros eclipse families. And I find that's very karmic. I don't know why. Maybe because I found so many connections with my chart. And that first one, like eclipse was literally on my ascendant, 28 degrees Virgo. Literally, that's the first one. So I thought, oh my God, this Virgo thing and Aries. I think I anyway. So what do you think about that? Do you use it in your practice? Or
yeah, I haven't personally, but like even as you're saying it, I'm like just the way we can study our families and what goes on inside of them, bringing those eclipses in is going to bring in a whole other layer of that ancestral karma that you're working out, right? Especially if we're looking at that South Node, is it activating many points in the charts? And it's a fascinating question that would be a really fun deep dive research project.
Yes. So as you mentioned some indicators of kind of karmic, what you look at. You look at the nodes, retrogrades. What else do you look at then? Eclipses,
I'm a weirdo. I think everything's karmic. Not every astrologer or karmic astrologer agrees, right? Like even my favorite astrologer, Judy Hall, is like, not everything's karmic. And I'm like, I swear to God, it's all karmic.
I love it. Go ahead. Tell me your perspective.
Right. Yeah. So this is where I'm at. So I do look at, but there are main points I'll look at, right?
Okay.
So I'm always going to look at the moon. Always going to look at the moon. I call it your emotional karma. You have emotionally been like in this karmic zone, like karmic comfort zone for so long, just feeling this way. And so that's why it's so natural to fall into it, right? And of course, I'm going to look at the South Node. I'm going to look at the North Node. Where have you been? Where are you going? What did you bring in that mastery? What are you going to do with it? And then I'm going to look at Pluto. What is Pluto doing? Right? Where's the loss of power? Where's the loss of that sense of, it's even belonging. I find with Pluto a lot of time, like this is where we find our little piece of our black sheepness and like all our pain points, all our unconscious trauma. I'm always going to look there to see what's underneath all the fear and, just being human. I do love to look at the 8th house, of course. I always look at the 4th house. I always look at the 12th house. I call them the karmic houses. I'm like, I'm going to go right away, see what's in there. What's in the subconscious, right? What's in the ancestral in the 4th house?
Yeah.
What's in the 8th house, like those big trauma release points? What's in the 12th house, that unfinished business? What'd you leave behind? What did you not finish? Which I find a lot of it is that. And I'm going to look at the Imam Koalai too, opposite the midheaven. Every time I got to go there because I read in whole signs, it's not always in the 4th house. So for anyone that doesn't use these Placidus, it's going to always be the 4th house, right? But whole signs, it could be in the 6th house, it can be in the 3rd house. I've seen it in the 2nd house. So it kind of brings a new flavor into the ancestral root system as well. What else do I really always go for? I do bring in the dark feminine asteroids as well too. I feel like they're very important. Like Lilith, Hecate, Persephone. Persephone is always going to show us, mother-daughter stuff. And it's going to show a lot of relationship issues if she's aspecting Pluto. Like there's just so much in them as well.
Yeah, I mean, yes, it's layers upon layers, but it's so beautiful. Thank you for sharing that. I think it's okay. So I know that many people, they go to therapy, and there's parents issues, mother, father. As you mentioned already, it comes from the 4th house, but it's also reflected in the 10th, right? Mother, father. So how do you look at it? Because there's also split tradition from the modern. How do you look at that mother, father? I know you look like
Yeah, it's a great question. And I teach my students this too, is like, okay, and maybe it's my Gemini Mars. Always an open mind. I'm like, always an open mind, and question your people. If you're doing a reading, open the floor to which feels true. So, you know, some astrologers, Judy Hall says it could be either. That's what I love about her. Is like the 10th could be the mother and the 4th could be the father, or they could be a swap. Whereas her teacher, you know, teaches it like the 4th is the father, no battles. That's where the father is. And the 10th is the mother. That's it. And then there's other teachers that flip it. So my quest always is, let's not try to be right. Let's try to ask questions. So I'll present it to be like, okay, I'm seeing this. I'm seeing ancestral or family stuff here. Does this feel more like your mom? And they'll say, yeah, actually that 4th house feels more like my mom. And for some reason, my 10th is feeling more like my dad. I'm like, that's cool. We're going to play with that. There's also theories that the 10th is more of the parent who was governing you more, who had more rules over you, right? And the 4th house is more the parent who sort of stepped back. And that's very interesting. In my chart, that's very true. I do definitely find it is true. Yeah.
In mine, 100%. Like my dad is 4th. He was more stay-at-home dad, more, he was, anyway, my mom was more of a workaholic. She was the one who kind of, anyway, it's very interesting. Yeah.
So that's kind of how I see it, is like, let's ask a lot of questions and find who's hanging out where. Right? Because there's the million point system of, now we're looking at the sun for dad, and we're looking at the moon for mom, and I'm looking at the Saturn for dad, and I'm looking at Ceres for mom. And does the whole story kind of change what house is functioning? I often find both are in both, right? When I look at my chart, I have a Aquarius Imam Coeli, which my dad really represents the, not so present. He was gone. I didn't feel very emotionally connected to him. I could never get close. But then that was a piece of my mom as well. And then they both have their Chiron in Aquarius. So I'm like, okay, you're both there. And then Leo for my midheaven, all that energy in Placidus, that's the 10th house. I see my mom and my dad. My dad's a Leo sun. My mom has a Leo cluster. I'm like, I see you both. So
yeah.
Ask a lot of questions.
I know, that's true. And today roles are different. Back in the day, the men used to provide, go out, hunt, provide, and the females were nurturing at home. Today's females go and hunt themselves. So
it's so true.
Right. And there's many dads now taking the role of, co-parenting with actually taking care of kids aside with moms. So that's why it's very hard. But it's good to see, like, how do you see your parents, how you see them. So that's exactly the conversation. That's excellent. Now I have to just bring this sensitive topic because everybody's going to ask anyway. What about the free will? What about the free will?
I love talking about free will. Okay, here's my view on this.
Okay.
So it's like everything is predestined. Okay. Interesting. Okay. It's like that's the theory, right? It's like if astrology is real, then everything's predestined, then we don't have free will. So what's the point? Okay. So the idea, this is how I see it, right? We're up in the ether again, and we make that birth chart, and we're like, this is how it's going to go. This is what these are my emotions. This is how my trauma is going to be. This is how hard it's going to be. This is how easy it's going to be. And then we have our transits. So I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit this. I'm going to hit this. Like for my chart, Pluto has just been rocking me since I was born, and he will continue until I die, just because of the way my chart is.
Yeah.
Made peace with this. Me and Pluto, we're good. But there lies here's the map. Right? This is how I see it. It's like, here's the map. This is how things are going to go. How are you going to meet them? Right? There's the free will. Okay. You are going to have your Saturn return when you hit that point, and it's going to hit, for me, it's Saturn in Capricorn, and it's going to hit this point in your life in the 4th house in whole signs. And it's going to really activate your safety, your security. You're not going to feel like you have a home. Pluto's going to be in there at the same time. It's going to be this whole thing. How are you going to meet it? Right? And this is where I find the free will is I can go 600 ways, right? I can go, oh, woe is me. I'm a victim. Life hates me. It's all out to get me. I'm giving up. I can go the way I went to say, this really sucks. I'm not loving this, but how do I move through it? How do I move past it? How do I grow with it? Right? So I think the free will piece is, what are you going to do about it? Because you're going to hit points where Pluto's going to be conjunct your Venus, and relationships are going to go wild, and your values are going to be completely up in the air, and your heart's going to break, and you're going to be like, why is this happening? But what do you do with it? Right? Because you can give up, or you can say, well, I could teach from this. I can heal from this. I can grow with this. So that's how I see the free will piece.
I love that. And you know what? Knowing your chart, what your strengths are, you can use those strengths actually to strategize and to work with those transits that hit you, right?
Exactly. Like I've got Pluto for the next 3 years going over my Imam Kualai and opposite my midheaven. And then it's just going to rock all my Pluto placements. So I could say, oh my God, I'm going to die. And I had a moment where I was like, I'm literally just going to die when this happens. But that's just my drama queen coming out, the Leo. But the truth is that what I know of that is my root system is going to transform. There may be loss. It might be loss of myself. It might be loss of people in my family. It might be loss of home. It might be a transformation around what I believe I wanted as a home. There's so many different things, right? So I'm going to say, all right, there's going to be pain inside of this. How am I going to meet it? Right? And that's the question.
Yeah. I to be honest, my Pluto is very strong in my chart. In a Placidus is in the first house.
Ditto.
It's trining my sun, it's squaring Venus, exactly. And when he was transiting my IC, I lost my mom. And but to be honest, after that, like it kind of transforms your life, right? It kind of transforms your life. It's you have it within you, like with this Pluto, it kind of gives you get empowered. It gives you, like, you kind of have control after, like when you face death or illness or something that it's out of your control, you kind of appreciate with your empowerment more. That's how I look at it. So it was I don't know, it was at the end, it was hard going through it, but after I feel more me than ever in that sense, right? More. So I love Pluto. I know it's hard.
I do too. And your story is so resonant because as Pluto was squaring my rising and descendant at 26 degrees Capricorn to my Libra rising and Aries descendant, it was very similar in that, my marriage almost completely fell apart. We separated for 6 months. I was like, it's over, we're done. And on the very last hit, when Pluto moved back to 26 degrees, the final hit, I was like, what am I doing? I love this man. I'm a crazy person. And the 3 years of chaos finalized in that moment. And I saw everything clearly. And our relationship is stronger because of everything we went through for that 3-year ride, while he was also opposite my Chiron as well. So it was just this whole thing. But that finalization, last hit, Pluto transits back on. I was like, got it. I know what to do. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Also, when Pluto was on in my fourth house, it was opposing my sun when I lost my mom. So it's not sometimes the moon, it's sometimes the sun, as you mentioned, because anyway, it's so interesting to see this. And I love this. I know your story, it's not funny, but it's interesting how both of you with Leo moons have this dramatic separation.
I know, it's so true. It's so true, right? Just like how the chart's so, you can't even make this up.
No. So it's interesting. Yeah. So this is then okay. So at the end of it all, now that we know it, like we can recognize our karmic template, we can see what we have, what we need to do, but how can we then help people? What would be your advice or some kind? I know you have to look at that and natal chart and go have a reading is number one, but in general, what would you kind of advise or suggest, or what would be the best guidance for people going through this, understanding this?
It's a good question. Okay. So I love, the idea we start to know, what are those placements, right? And I would say the best place to start is find these little placements in your chart. And you could even chat GPT this if you wanted to. Like you could use AI for this, but learn the low octaves or the lowest expression of those energies, and then do some shadow work. When am I operating inside of these? What in my life puts me in this state? What in my life, like when I look at my Leo South Node, my God, when I first read, the first book I read, like real astrology book, was Astrology for the Soul by Jan Spiller, about the nodes. And I'm reading it. It's 2014. Someone gave it to me and I'm like, who's been stalking me? Like, this is me. What's happening right now? And so if we looked at something like the South Node and we look at all those low octaves, the nitty gritty, bad behaviors, bad habits, like the lowest expression of that sign, and say, there I am. There I am, right? But then also to say, well, what's the highest expression of that sign? I work a lot in these octaves inside of, my teachings to say, where are you expressing? And knowing that we're human, we're going to be on the spectrum all the time, right? Especially if we're talking about the South Node or the moon, because they're so emotional. But to say, okay, my Leo South Node, when I'm operating there, I also have a lot of rage. The Aries and the Leo burn hot and quick. It's done real quick, but like it happens, right? And so when we can see it and say, okay, I have a little bit of an anger problem. Wow, first step, right? First step to be able to witness it and say, I am a rageaholic. It's okay. How am I going to work with that, right? So now we have an outlet to say, well, am I going to go to anger management? Nope, that doesn't feel good. Does shadow work feel good? Does hitting a pillow feel good? Does an Aries South Node, does running feel good? Does kickboxing feel good, right? To get out this energy. For me, it's like yoga is usually something that actually cools my heat down. So if I go to yoga, I'm like, okay, I cooled the heat of my Leo-ness down. So we can kind of say, what are those bad habits? Where am I being that? What triggers it? What part of me am I not recognizing or ignoring or avoiding? And then what would the high expression be? So for Leo, I got to go into my heart, right? Every time I have a rage fit, I have to go in and go, this isn't only impacting me, it's impacting my husband, it's impacting my dog, for goodness sakes. Like it's impacting, when I was a kid, my mom. So when we can recognize that, it's like the deepest shadow work to say, like, oh, I'm actually the problem, right? And then we start to reclaim our power through whatever tools feel good for you. So I work a lot with embodiment tools, right? So for Leo, medicine's always, like I say, dancing, like go dance in your living room, right? Express yourself. Go to an art class, go to a belly dancing class, go to what is it called? The pole dancing class. Something like that could be therapy for a unhealed Leo, because they don't feel safe to express themselves. Or an Aries, I'm like, well, you need to get your energy out. So what would be
martial arts? I think martial arts are good. I never went, but but it's good. I did some Tai Chi and and do some, you have to, in a nice way. Maybe not boxing, like per se, I'm not a boxer, but some kind of martial arts are very good, because
you're like containing the flow of energy too with martial arts, right? To say, like, I'm putting this energy here. So it's so powerful that when we can look at these and then we find little tools to say, how can I improve my life based on this shadow?
Yeah, it's also important who the ruler is and what the ruler does of that South Node. Which, for example, my ruler of my South Node is Mars in Leo, conjunct exactly Saturn in Leo. So that can be also, a way. So there's like a lot of things that I'm kind of aware that my Aries energy, although I don't have no planets in Aries. Like people will say, I have nothing in Aries, but I have this, and it's more than enough to work with, because, understanding that and finding the remedies, as you say. I think astrology can really help us find the remedies. It's not easy. Like people, it's not a magic wand. You have to work on it yourself. That's
you do.
Many clients come to me, oh, what is this? And, if you want to, if you want to meet somebody, first of all, you have to go out there and meet people. Otherwise, nobody's going to knock at your door. So in that sense, working on your shadow, working on your, things can help you. Otherwise, there's no magic in that sense.
No. Right? And it is like, you have to meet yourself so deep for this magic to happen, right? It's like, how willing are you to meet yourself? It's the big question. How willing are you to see your deepest shadows and honor them? Because you can live on autopilot. It's absolutely fine. You can live on autopilot in your signs, and they'll express the way they express. And I could have lived on autopilot with my Leo stellium, my Virgo stellium, my Gemini Mars. And, I could have just been a hot-headed control freak for the rest of my life. Or I can choose to, what I'm doing now is to meet that Virgo energy. This is the big one I'm working with, to say, like, why are you trying to control things so much? Like, what are you afraid is going to happen if you let go of control? And my Virgo is like, I'm afraid I'm going to die. Right. And so I'm like, okay, well, we're not dying right now. So what do we need? What do we need? Right. And this is like, I think what people don't understand about astrology is this is what we're doing as astrologers. We're not just telling you, oh, your moon is in Cancer, so you're an emotional wreck and just go to bed. Like, we're saying your moon is in Cancer, so there's some karma here, or different astrologers not going to use the karmic words. And how do we heal? How do we make that Cancer moon feel safe? That's what they're really looking for.
Yeah, do your moon. And Orthley, one of my mentors, she always says, do your moon when you feel overwhelmed or depressed, or just do your moon. Your moon must be happy, and then you're gonna be happy. So
yeah, it's so true.
yeah, that's interesting. So my moon is happy just talking to you now, because moon in Gemini.
We're just chatting.
Yes, talking about something that I'm passionate about, which is astrology. So that's
definitely
amazing.
And it's your moon in the 4th house?
No, so so because I'm a late Virgo rising, 20 degrees, everything switched. So in quadrant system, it's in 9th. In whole sign, it's 10th.
Okay, 10th. Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so it just wants to talk about all the things, especially that if it's in the 9th house. My goodness.
Yes, and I have Mercury conjunct 1 minute apart with my moon. So
so you just want to talk. I love it.
Yes, just I don't know. I learned how to listen more, to be honest.
That's the magic, right? That's your medicine. I say that to like my Gemini moons and south nodes all the time. I'm like, you're just learning to communicate, to listen, to slow down, to process, like just using that therapy of the opposing sign of Sagittarius, right? You're forming belief systems. Like, you're good. Just
So I'm but do your moon, as you mentioned, it's your starting point, and then you can go from there. And yes, it's hard work, guys.
It is.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to say before we finish up? Because I think I asked you everything that I had in my mind. There's many questions, but
we could go forever. I know.
Forever. Yeah. So from your
I
practice about Karmic astrology, what would you want to say? A conclusion or summary, or something that I didn't mention?
Yeah, I think I would leave off on, so the word karma gets a bad rap, right? Because everyone's always like, well, karma, so it must be bad, must be terrible things, ancestral karma, so I must only be looking at the negative. And though, in my work, we do work with the wounds. That's my favorite thing to work with. We also have to remember that your karma has the mastery points, right? So there's so many things in your chart that are working with you, that even I find the wounds are like helping you if you're willing to look at them a little differently. But when we're looking at all of this, it's not like doom and gloom, like you are in a punishment. You're not receiving punishment, right? People are like, oh, I must be living this as punishment for another life. No. You just didn't learn a lesson, and you want to learn that lesson. Your soul wanted to learn that lesson. So when we think about karma, let's think about, my soul was very interested in learning about being powerless in this house, right? Pluto in Scorpio in my whole signs is in my 2nd house. So, I was very interested in learning about being powerless when it comes to my resources. Why? Right? What am I learning through that? And if I can get curious and say, well, this isn't a punishment from previous lives. This is my soul saying, I really want to learn about resources. I want to reclaim my power around money, stability, security, material things, whether or not they're important or not. All of a sudden, karma becomes this thing where it's like, oh, like this is just something I want to learn and master and reclaim and liberate. And we can just like change the idea that karma is a punishment into karma is an invitation, and it contains mastery and some crappy things that we're going to work through. I think that we will begin to see ourselves a little different.
I love that. It's just like learning how to write and read. There's ups and downs, but then don't give up. I would just, that would be my only thing to tell to people. Just don't give up. Because I used to give up so easily, because, if it's not right away, I can do it by next, right? So anyway, so I would give up on so many things when I was younger, but now I'm not giving up. I'm just not giving up.
I love
I'm
that.
Here. I decided I'm not going to give up. And Yes, that's from my experience. Oh, thank you so much. Yeah, this was amazing. Thank you so much for your time. I know you're busy. Please tell people, what are you doing right now? I know.
Yeah.
First of all, I want to tell everybody, go to Instagram and follow Vika's account, because I love her reels. I can't wait. This series about the past lives series that you're doing. Oh my God, it's so much fun. I can't wait to see mine.
Love it. I loved you. Like, that's what I'm trying to focus on. Like, what could be fun, right? My friend and I are like, what could be fun to create? So yeah, Instagram's the best way to contact me. Definitely. Yes. Vika Bradford Astrology. From there, I do teach my course every October. The door is open for It's Karmic. It's like a 12-week deep dive into Karmic Astrology. So if anyone actually wants to learn Karmic Astrology, this is the portal. It's like literally like a transformative portal, because you're going to be studying yourself along the way as learning the chart. It's great. And then what else am I doing? Readings open when my energy allows. I'm a manifestor in human design. So my energy just really, like, it moves so differently. So every couple months I'll open my books up for, 4 or 5 readings. I'll probably open them up in the winter season this year. So probably like November, December. And that's really the best way to connect with me right now. Besides little master classes that will come out here and there as well.
Awesome. Great. I'll put all the links in the description below, how to find her. Vika is just, I don't know. Anyway, very good. I'm so happy that I found you through Matt, finding these beautiful souls I can talk to and present to everybody. And what are they doing? It's one of my Libra North Node things that I enjoy this collaboration. So,
I love it. I love
it. Thank you again so much. I appreciate it. Thanks everybody for watching. If you have any questions, you can always leave in the comments below. I'm here for you as well. My website is Jasmina Brozvik Astrology, YouTube, Instagram, and website. This is where you can find me if you need any guidance. And newsletter is coming up soon. I just want to mention I have a monthly newsletter, so subscribe as well. Link is going to be below, and don't miss the one for October forecast. And that's it. Thank you again very much. I appreciate everything that you do. I hope you're going to do another one of these soon.